P5 on the grid, but from where you were yesterday with the car, how are you feeling about that session and where you're lining up?
Yeah, definitely an improvement from where we've been. Definitely an improvement from I would say from my qualifying side. So I'm relatively happy with it. We're not P3. We're definitely not where we wanted to be.
Were you able to make some positive changes to the car over the night? Feeling a little bit better in terms of setup and feel?
Yeah, I think the car is moving in. I think setup-wise and just process-wise, I think this weekend had gone in the right direction. I think we had some problems through some of the practice sessions with, steering wheel issue we had in the second one, and then also some downforce issue we had on in P2, which really kind of. There was a lot of, 2% of error performance from the front end we were missing. So to have recovered and got the car in a good place, I'm relatively happy.
And what about the race tomorrow? What's your feeling there?
It's going to be close. It's really close between us all. So I'm going to try and get on the podium for once.
Can a 5th place in classification change the course of a season, or even a complete era in Ferrari? Hamilton's words after the GP of Spain are not just statements. They are an evening warning, and what he said and what he didn't say could be more important than you imagine. Lewis Hamilton came out of the classification of the 2025 Spain Grand Prix with a mixture of relief content and disguised disappointment. His 5th place in the table was not only an improvement with respect to previous classifications such as Australia, where he barely added a point, but also a sign that despite everything, Ferrari still has a competitive pulse. However, the true value of this action does not lie so much in the position achieved, but in what it reveals about the current state of the team and the Hamilton adaptation process to its new environment. There is a crucial detail that cannot go unnoticed. This was just the second time in the entire season that Lewis managed to qualify ahead of Charles Leclerc, the pilot who has been carrying the weight of Ferrari on his shoulders for years. And although the difference was minimal, it is sufficient to underline that Hamilton has begun to better interpret the technical language of the SF-25. The problem is that this language remains erratic, with a car whose competitiveness depends more on external conditions such as track temperature or curve types than on a solid and predictable platform. But even with all this, the panorama is worrying. Because while Ferrari seems to have taken a step forward in classification, there are no clear indications that this improvement is maintained in a career rhythm. And Hamilton knows. His words after the classification were not celebrated, but of warning. When he says that we are not in P3 and we are definitely where we wanted to be, he is making it clear that any progress is only relative to the enormous expectations that his signing brings. He didn't come to Ferrari to be 5th. He came to win. And in Montmello it was evident that for now that goal is still out of reach. This moment of the season marks a silent turning point. Because if in Spain, a circuit that requires aerodynamic balance, tensile in long curves and tire management in multiple axes, the SF-25 can only reach a 5th place even with a more integrated and competitive Hamilton. What can be expected in more demanding paths such as Canada or Silverstone? The answer can be in how Ferrari used this classification, as a small advance towards a real improvement, or as an excuse to make up deeper deficiencies that, sooner or later, will be exposed again. The words that Lewis Hamilton chose after the classification in the GP of Spain were neither casual nor light. Each one was loaded with intention and analyzed carefully. They draw the mental map of a pilot who knows better than anyone how large projects are built in Formula One, but also immediately identifies when the pieces still do not fit at all. By saying, definitely an improvement, and repeating it, it is sending a double signal. It recognizes the technical advance with respect for the team's work, but at the same time it makes it clear that this advance is insufficient. And even more, he contextualizes that improvement as from my side in classification, which reveals that he perceives this progress as a personal adaptation than as an integral evolution of the car. Hamilton is not a pilot who distributes praise without deserving or criticism without purpose. Since his arrival in Ferrari has maintained a direct tone, sometimes uncomfortable for the team, but absolutely necessary if what they are looking for is to break the inertia of technical mediocrity that have dragged for years. At this point, you have to understand that what you are doing is not to complain, but to apply positive internal pressure. When saying openly that we are definitely not where we wanted to be, it is marking a clear line between complacency and competitive demand. What would be a good result for others? For Hamilton, it is simply the starting point. This type of language is a leadership tool in a team that historically has had problems reacting to self-complacency. Instead of focusing that he has surpassed Leclerc or that he is within the top 5, The British insists on pointing out that Ferrari is still far from the necessary performance to play victories. This message is directed both fans, media, and towards the heart of Maranello's technical team. He does not want the narrative to settle in that they are improving, but that they are not ready. The semantic difference is subtle but strategic. Moreover, Hamilton was especially acute when he addressed the question of tires. His technical analysis was brief, but revealing. Most people have soft and a medium, Charles and a couple of other people have two media. What seems like a simple observation contains a deep tactical reading. It is indicating that rubber management will be the axis of the race, and that the fact that your partner has a different strategy is no accident. These statements reflect how Hamilton is already thinking beyond the classification. The strategic map of Sunday's career has in the head. This is not new to him, but it is in Ferrari, where historically they have sinned more than proactivity. In addition, there is a psychological reading that cannot be ignored. Hamilton uses his speech to reconfigure the internal story of the team. It is no longer about being in the shadow of McLaren or Red Bull, but for forcing a culture of continuous improvement from sincerity, even if that implies bothering. His experience allows him to see the risks of falling into self-complacency, something that has destroyed projects in Ferrari in the past. Thus, its insistence not to celebrate too much a fifth place is a form of protection for the team, an emotional anchor that avoids the extremes and allows cold decisions to be made. Finally, we must understand that this clarity in the analysis, this methodical form of communicating, is also part of the added value that Hamilton brings to Ferrari. It's not just a fast pilot. It is an internal communicator, a kind of catalyst that transforms partial results into useful information for the evolution of the car. And in a season where margins are so tight, that type of leadership can be what defines if Ferrari returns to the top or remains in that gray area of the almost. The true essence of Ferrari's progress in the 2025 Grand Prix is not only in classification times, but in the technical details that reveal how the SF-25 has evolved or not from the first races of the year. This car, conceived as the great promise to recover the prominence lost in the last seasons, has proven to be as intriguing as unstable. And what has been seen in Montmello, a track that due to its characteristics requires aerodynamic efficiency, mechanical precision and thermal control, has been an X-ray without anesthesia of the red car. Ferrari arrived in Barcelona with an update package that included key modifications in the flat background, touch-ups in the aerodynamic profiles of the front wing and rear suspension settings to improve traction control. At first glance, these changes seemed modest, but their goal was ambitious: gain general balance without compromising peak speed, a balance that has been historically difficult for Italian team. The SF-25 has had moments of great speed in straight lines, but has often failed in the passage through medium and fast curve, especially under high aerodynamic load conditions. The main problem that this car has dragged since the beginning of the year is its extremely narrow operation window. That is, it needs very specific conditions to perform optimally. A little more temperature on the track, an unexpected cross or a less rough asphalt, and the car begins to behave erratically. The pilots have described it as unpredictable, and that feature has been one of the great obstacles in the search for consistency. Hamilton mentioned it indirectly when talking about how the car went from being not manageable on Friday to allow him to qualify fifth on Saturday. This type of variability is not sustainable throughout a season of more than 20 races. In Barcelona, however, there were signs of stabilization. The combination between aerodynamic adjustments and the work in the car differential seems to have allowed Hamilton to find a point of greater confidence in braking and, above all, in curve outputs. Specifically in the third sector of the circuit, a technical section that requires precision in slow curves, the SF-25 showed a less nervous behavior than in previous races, something that was decisive for Lewis to extract crucial tenths. This indicates that the technical corrections applied were not only effective in theoretical terms, but also translated into measurable track performance. Another aspect that cannot go unnoticed is the correlation work between the simulator and the track. In previous seasons, Ferrari has failed loudly in this field, introducing improvements that worked in Maranello but not in the real circuits. The fact that the updates applied in Spain have had a specific positive effect may suggest that this link is being strengthened, and that there is finally a more precise alignment between the work of the engineers and the reality of the pilots. Even so, the general sensation is still fragility, because while certain errors have been corrected, the SF-25 still does not present a clear identity. It does not dominate in fast curves, neither is the strongest in traction, nor the one that takes care the best. What he does is adapt, survive, and at best take advantage of the bad day of others. And that is not the base of a champion car. In order for Ferrari to really fight for the titles, the car needs to become a functional commitment to a total trusted platform. Hamilton knows it. Therefore, each technical evaluation offered is loaded with intentionality. He does not speak only of the car in his current state, but of what he needs to be. That is why he celebrates prudence and demands without ambiguity. Because he understands that nuances matter, and that a competitive car is not born only from a couple of tenths in classification, but of a solid concept that remains competitive in all types of paths, climates, and conditions. The fifth position of Lewis Hamilton in the classification of the 2025 Grand Prix may seem like a modest result to the naked eye, but the truth is that it contains a much deeper and more significant narrative. It's not just a grid position. It is a strategic statement. It is a testimony of the exact moment in which a pilot with one of the most successful trajectories in history is face to face with a structure that has been looking for redemption for years. And most importantly, it is the subtle but forceful warning that the improvement is not enough if it is not accompanied by stability, technical vision, and unwavering ambition. Hamilton did not come to Ferrari to be part of the story, came to rewrite her. His words after classification make it clear. And what is at stake is not only its legacy, but the immediate future of one of the most iconic racks of motoring. Because if Ferrari fails to turn these partial progress into a sustained trend, the risk of getting lost again in the limbo of the half table is more real than ever. The margin of error is shrinking with each race, and the time to find a coherent technical direction is exhausted. In that sense, this moment of the season represents much more than a simple post-classification analysis. It is a crossroads, because what is decided now in Maranello's offices at engineering meetings, and in each simulator adjustment, it will mark the course of the entire 2025 project. And Hamilton knows. His speech, his attitude, and his way of reading the career are not the result of chance. They are the synthesis of a pilot who is not willing to settle. Now the question is for you. Do you think this fifth place can be the spark that Ferrari needs to recover lost trust?